So recently, I had the opportunity to go back to Shawnee State University, where I coached baseball some time ago, and participate in a celebration recognizing our World Series team. It was the 25th anniversary of this team. And it was a really incredible time because it allowed me to not only connect with people, spend time, recount things that happened, tell stories, but it also let me kind of reflect on the culture that we had and so many of the things that I think allowed that team to be so good. And when I think about how good they were, I'll give you a little bit of insight, and I understand some of this may not mean anything to you if you're not interested in baseball at all, but this team was they finished fifth at the World Series. Now, to give you some context about like how much of a David versus Goliath type of accomplishment that was, every other team, there were 10 teams at the World Series. Every other team was fully funded, which at our level meant a maximum of 12 full scholarships. Our team had 1.7. So that meant that we had 1.7 full scholarships to our university to be distributed, broken up over over all the players we had on the roster, which, as you can imagine, that's not much. And that probably didn't serve to be, all that attractive to recruit people to campus. Yet, in spite of that, this team won 48 games. They led the country in hitting. They led the country in on-base percentage. They led the country in slugging percentage. Just top to bottom, just an incredible collection of individual accomplishments and overall just some magnificent team success. Well, if I look at why this team was so good, I mean, it wasn't long that everybody was back together that you could see how that happened. I mean, they were very close-knit. They were very connected. There weren't, just as before, there weren't really cliques or whatever else. There wasn't that kind of internal strife. There's a bunch of guys generally rooting for one another, expecting each other to have success, lifting each other up. And I'm probably saying it more of a flowery way than you'd get out of college age young men, because it certainly was more competitive and more of a challenging environment than that. And probably a little more crass in some cases than I'm probably presenting it. But, they just made each other better. And I look back at like, how did this happen, right? I know from a recruiting standpoint, there were a few things that I probably valued that helped them be successful. One is we recruited a lot of people who were kind of similar. They were maybe a little more blue collar than the traditional college student. The university itself lent itself to, the part of the country that it was in, it was kind of a blue collar area, still is. Very much caters to like first generation college students, which, you think 25 years ago, that was even more prevalent. So we had a lot of people that were very much of that kind of gritty blue collar mindset. They were not entitled in any way, shape, or form. They came in, their expectations were like, hey, we're going to be competitive, we're going to get a degree, and we're going to get better. And I don't think there was anything beyond that. It wasn't like, oh, we're going to have the best swag, or we're going to have the best facilities, or anything like that, because that was kind of the opposite of the way that we operated. So they came in, and then, I would say that the things that I may have done to help that you could probably help in your environment is I just kind of created the framework for stuff. I kind of set the tone for the style that we were going to play, the things that we were going to value, created maybe drills or systems that we would use, but left a lot of latitude within all of that. We prioritized being in the weight room, but we also, like, I wanted a team that people were excited about going to practice and not just tolerated doing stuff they didn't love doing. So, we were going to try to hit home runs. We were going to try to hit the ball incredibly hard. We were going to do a lot of things that I felt like players would be excited to be involved in. And, and then they took it from there, right? They had that kind of, collection of guardrails, if you will, and then just they competed, and we put people in competitive environments, but they just kind of rolled with it. And we had guys that, they were obviously talented enough players, but pretty much everybody had their best season ever on that team. And I don't think it was a fluke. I don't think it was luck. I think that they brought out the best in one another, and those kind of guardrails or constraints gave them kind of rules of the game to compete within. So, our best hitter hit 19 home runs that season. Prior to coming to our university, the most home runs he had hit in any season was 3. We just had that really, really awesome kind of collective pull the rope in one direction mentality. And so, I think what I loved about that, going back and seeing this, was seeing that they were still kind of all the same guys, kind of wired the same way, that I hadn't really misread. Hey, these were the type of guys that we recruited. And if I look at the things I've been involved with that have had a really good culture since then. I mean, I co-founded a franchise that had the number 1 rated franchisee satisfaction rate for multiple years, not just in fitness, but in all franchises in North America under 500 locations. That's culture, right? But it's also kind of the same thing. You're kind of recruiting the same type of people. You're creating guardrails that help bring out the best. You're getting people that share best practices and want to lift each other up. We had a company that received multiple awards for best places to work in our state. Same thing. You're finding people who want people around them to succeed, and they've got an environment that's ideally set up to do that. And I say that knowing that if I look at my biggest failures as a leader, I think about the year after our World Series team, probably my biggest failing as a leader was that team. And we still won 70% of our games, but I kind of lost track of what the identity was that had historically made us good, got us to really kind of climb the ladder in spite of very limited resources, and recruited people who didn't have those similar traits and characteristics. And I think that if you want to have people in the right room and want them to thrive, you got to know that you're matching the person to the environment. And I created a mismatch, right? I created an environment where people weren't necessarily rooting for one another. They were kind of out for themselves. I created an environment where I recruited people that maybe were a little more entitled and are, the structure, the guardrails, the framework was not, not an environment that probably facilitated those people maximizing their potential. And, if I think about that, it kind of just traces back to, I wrote a book called The Culture Blueprint, and I talk about good people. Everybody talks about, you got to have good people. You got to have the right people. That's what makes culture. I'm like, well, you know what? I've seen really good people really kind of flounder because they're not in the right environment. They're not in the environment that unlocks their potential by being around people who share kind of common traits or characteristics, by being in an environment that tries to maximize their potential, their talents, and that gives them direction on what being great looks like. And if I look at where it's going well, we had that. And the times that maybe I've not done a good job, I've drifted, I've gotten away from it. And what's interesting too, it even as I record this at age 52, I mean, man, that still eats at me. I mean, I look at times that I lost track of that. I'm like, man, I should have known better. I should have known to, what got us here, who our people are, who I work best with. And I think about that too, even when I coach clients. I mean, right now, our boardroom coaching group that Doug Sperling and I run is probably the most successful coaching group I've ever been around as far as continual progress. From 2023 to 2024, everybody improved universally. Everybody had like their best year ever. And by all accounts, they're on pace to do the same thing again this year. I just, I don't know if most people realize how rare that is, that not, one, two, three people in a group don't have off years. But, these folks all have a lot of those kind of common characteristics, intangibles. They all are kind of an open book to help each other get better. They're all engaged and committed and have kind of a clear vision on where they want to go and are continually working to get there. And so if you are wanting to be better or wanting to create something better, I hope you kind of keep in mind the culture piece of this, because this is more than tactics. In sports, it was more than drills or strategy. In business, it's more than tactics. It's more than which marketing campaign you're going to run. It's unlocking the potential of the people who are involved, whether it's your clients, whether it's your team, whether it's you. Are you putting each of those respective people in the right environment? Are you surrounding them with other like-minded people, not necessarily who have the same goals, but are willing to make each other better, at the same time they're pursuing becoming better themselves? And are you creating this and facilitating this on a daily basis? Because if you do, I mean, it's amazing what you can accomplish. I've seen it time and time again. But then on the flip side, if you aren't mindful of the culture, if you aren't kind of picking the right people, if you aren't putting yourself in the right environment, you're almost always going to fall short of what you could accomplish. So if you want to create a championship culture, at least from my experience, that's what it looks like.